We have some positive news about the Activision and Blizzard acquisition. Xbox has an impressive milestone for the first time in a long time in Japan. Got some more information about some more showcases coming up, as well as 2 Ubisoft games that are going to be making their way onto Xbox Game Pass. So since the announcement of Microsoft purchasing Activision Blizzard to become a part of Xbox Game Studios, there have been a lot of things that have come out trying to hold back this deal, from people writing letters telling their shareholders not to vote for the deal to go through, which we know obviously did not work, as 98% of the shareholders voted for the Activision Blizzard deal to be approved. We had Elizabeth Warren and some other politicians writing a letter as to why this deal was bad, but the letter itself literally didn't mention anything that made any sense in terms of actually why this deal could potentially be bad. They even failed to reference the fact that, hey, going over to Xbox is going to give the employees of Activision Blizzard just a way better work experience. They were trying to spin it as that would not be the case. We've had the reports of potential insider trading with Bobby Kotick and a couple of other people that is being investigated. But all of that stuff aside, the probability that this deal is going to pass and go through is extremely high. And now we have some more information as to just how fast this deal is actually moving. This was via an interview with Microsoft President and Vice Chairman Brad Smith, and he talked about the deal saying, "It's moving fast, at least fast enough for an acquisition of this size. We have received requests for information on this subject here in Brussels, but also in London and Washington. We answer questions, we give briefings, and we provide the information requested." One of our attorneys summed it up nicely by saying, "We're coming to the end of the beginning, and now we're entering the beginning of the middle. It's a long process, and we're still at the stage where we're answering questions. For us, of course, the sooner it is done, the better, but we will respect the process." So as you can see from what he said there, the deal is moving faster than I guess what they had expected. Now, they have said that this deal is going to be closing by the first half of 2023. So in reality, there's about a year left before this deal does close if it stays on that timeline. But if it is going fast, like Brad Smith is mentioning here, maybe the middle part will move extremely fast, and then we'll get to the end before we know it. And maybe this deal will close before the end of the first half of 2023. And this is some good positive news. This is one of the first, I guess, positive things we've heard since they announced the acquisition of Activision Blizzard in terms of information that has people more optimistic that this deal will get closed and approved. Because if you're just reading the headlines, you're reading all the stuff coming out, you may start to think there is a chance that this won't happen. I personally don't think there is a chance that it won't go through. Like I said, beginning that the more likely than not, this deal is going to be passing, especially with that 98% approval vote from the shareholders. And it makes you start to think about Xbox in 2022 and how Starfield and Redfall getting delayed has given them 0 first-party games this year. And June 12th is just around the corner. And we know that they're going to have to come up with something in order to give us a bit more hype for the end of this year from a PR perspective, in terms of people thinking there is going to be that killer app to pick up an Xbox this holiday season. Now, it probably won't be them announcing something with Activision Blizzard, probably won't be this deal finishing before the end of the year, but that would be pretty insane if it is moving so fast that they're going to be able to get this done before the end of 2022. I think it will probably be in around March, April 2023 once this deal closes. But you look at the IPs Activision Blizzard has, it would be super cool if they were somehow able to do something for 2022 with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and give an announcement for Xbox specifically for that. We saw this here yesterday, and this was Sony showing this year's marketing deals, and Call of Duty was missing. And if you think about Call of Duty over the last couple of iterations, they've had a marketing deal with PlayStation. It was a massive marketing deal for them, and I'm sure they sold a ton of consoles, a ton of PS4s, PS5s because of that marketing deal with Call of Duty. And it just further shows the point that, hey, it's not the first party games, they aren't the only things that sell consoles, that sell people's platforms. It is games like Call of Duty, which are the most popular franchises, the most popular games in the video game industry, that probably push out the most consoles. So if they did something this year, get some marketing deal, even though they don't own Activision Blizzard yet, with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, with Warzone 2, that would be pretty huge if they announced something like that at the June 12th event. And then once this deal finally goes through in 2023 or whenever it goes through, you just look at the IPs that they are going to have, even from this poster alone, with Overwatch, Diablo, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush, if you're a mobile fan, and StarCraft. Just incredible IPs. And Phil Spencer has also talked about wanting to dig up older IPs within the Activision Blizzard portfolio. So it's going to be so many games. Yes, 2022 is dry, but think about what's coming after this year. It's going to be insane, the amount of content that will be available through the Xbox platform. All right, jumping over here to some very substantial news, in my opinion, and that is that for the very first time in 8 years, Xbox has outsold PlayStation in Japan. Yes, I said that correctly. You guys can see the headline. Xbox has outsold PlayStation in Japan. It was only for last week, but I still think it's a pretty significant thing because it's Japan, it's Xbox. We know how poor Xbox has been doing over there. I think this is a very good step in the right direction. Now, what's most interesting about them outselling PlayStation last week is that it was done by the Xbox Series S on its own, not including the Xbox Series X. They sold 6,120 units, and the PS5 and the PS5 Digital Edition combined only sold 2,693 units. Now, I don't know why this is, but you can come to some conclusions as to why the Xbox Series S sold so well, sold more than the PlayStation 5, and the Series X didn't even sell nearly as well. And I'm thinking it's probably because there's a couple reasons. One, probably very available compared to the other platforms out there, so people are going in there and purchasing them. But I still think on its own, that's very impressive for Xbox in Japan, just because you think about the Xbox One, maybe the Xbox One S, or other times that Xbox was available in a store before this generation. Would people still go into shops and pick those up, or would they have waited for a later date to pick up a PlayStation? And I have a feeling that last generation they would have waited, but this generation, because the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X and everything Xbox has been offering with Game Pass has been so good, people are more inclined to purchase these consoles. You also look at the Xbox Series S and its form factor, and that's something people have talked about since the launch of this generation. Was the small form factor of the Xbox Series S is going to be very appealing for people in Japan, just because of the way that they live, smaller spaces, it's sleeker. They love their handheld gaming, which are very small. The Xbox Series S can literally be turned into kind of like a mini portable console when you attach the screen onto it. So there's a lot of positives with the Xbox Series S that would appeal to people in Japan. The other thing is too that we talked about yesterday was Xbox is getting more involved in the Japanese market. They're going to be part of that Indie Expo on May 21st and 22nd, which has to do with Japanese indie developers, and the indie scene is huge over there. Now Xbox is going to be in the forefront of talking about and announcing games, so that's going to push more consoles going forward. So overall, you can see Xbox is doing these little things here and there, or you could say big things depending on how you look at it, to get more foothold in Japan, and it's paying off, as we see here that they have outsold the PS5 last week. Now in comparison, you look at the numbers, it's actually quite staggering compared to how much the PS5 sold 2 weeks ago, then compared to what they sold just last week. 2 weeks ago, the PlayStation 5 sold 49,798 units, and then the Xbox Series S had sold 10,000 units, and again suggests that there are those fluctuations because of the chip shortage and the availability. But I go back to that point. Yeah, you can say the chip shortage is the thing that makes Xbox sell more than PlayStation, but it's definitely not the only thing. Xbox is a desirable console and people are seeing it, and if it's the only console available, instead of walking away and just waiting, they're picking it up because they know there is content on there that they want to play. And if you look at the history of Xbox in Japan, again, why this last week I think is pretty significant, pretty notable, is that they say here, as of February, only 2.3 million Xbox consoles had been sold in Japan across all the generations since the OG Xbox for the last 20 years. And the majority of these sales were with the Xbox 360, with about 1.6 million units sold. The Xbox 360, a very popular console, also had some pretty big JRPGs on it that a lot of people really enjoyed. And out of the entire lifespan of Xbox and PlayStation selling consoles together, the Xbox has only outsold PlayStation fewer than 10 times, and they haven't outsold PlayStation since the launch of the Xbox One in 2014. And overall, you think about the Xbox strategy, especially in Japan, it is just all digital. They want to get people into their ecosystem. They don't care about putting out box games. They don't care about locking people to a console. The Series S is a very cheap and good gateway into Game Pass. The next move they have to do is to get more Japanese games on the service if they want to continue to grow. But this is pretty interesting. They say here Xbox has moved away from physical media in Japan and is shifting focus to PC Game Pass and Series S. Big rise in Series S stock this last week, and marketing materials focused on PC Game Pass. The Xbox Series X has sold more in Japan at the moment, but this will change soon, in my opinion. And this was back in April 28th. This was tweeted out. But they also mentioned here, since the Xbox S launch, less than 10 titles have box copies in Japan. Even multi-platform games like Resident Evil 8 and Elden Ring do not have box Japanese versions. With the lack of retail presence, it makes sense for Microsoft to shift focus to digital and Game Pass in Japan. They now need more Japanese games. That's crazy. Less than 10 titles that are boxed in Japan. They're going all in on Game Pass and on Xbox Cloud Gaming, especially with the integration of that to a mobile phone. And with how much they love mobile gaming over there, I think it will be very successful. It'll be great to see just how they continue to grow in Japan throughout the rest of this generation. And in order to continue to grow in Japan, they are looking to hire more people to help do that. As it says here, Microsoft is hiring for a production partner manager for the Xbox Japan team, working with both major publishers and indies to help them navigate the different stages of the end-to-end product lifecycle on Xbox and Windows platforms. So they're continuing to try to grow this area, specifically here talking about the indies and the major publishers. So they're trying to reach out to more publishers, trying to reach out to more indies, as we're seeing with that event next week, to get their products within their platforms, to get them onto Game Pass, to get them within the Xbox store, because that's what they're going to have to do now. They have the product, they have something that is desirable, they have the form factor down, they have the price down, they have the ability to access games through your phone. Now they just got to get that Japanese content that gamers will want over there. They want to continue to grow there. All right, quickly jumping over here to Ubisoft games coming over to Xbox Game Pass. Previously, I think it was last month or so, they announced that For Honor, Marching Fire, and Assassin's Creed Origins would be making their way on to Xbox Game Pass. The big thing here, specifically with Assassin's Creed Origins, is that 60 frames per second update that a lot of people have been wanting. Ubisoft said they were going to do it, and now we know a release date for both of these games, and I'm assuming AC Origins is going to have that 60 FPS. So for Honor, Marching Fire, it's June 1st, and for Assassin's Creed Origins, it's June 6th. Now, people are wondering after seeing this, is that going to be the end of Ubisoft games coming over to Xbox Game Pass? As we know, with PlayStation Plus, they are getting the Ubisoft Plus Classics, which they get a bunch of different games. The big headliner there, I would say probably the biggest one compared to all of the other ones under it, would be Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And we know Ubisoft is bringing Ubisoft Plus over to console. It's going to have to be a separate subscription, at least for now, on both PlayStation and Xbox, but then you get access to all of their Ubisoft games, all of their big new games that come out. So we'll wait and see, but I have a feeling that the Ubisoft Plus Classics curated library will be making its way out onto Xbox at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to announce that that is also coming over to Xbox Game Pass at the June 12th event. But that's just my speculation. That's just my guess. It just seems like it would make sense for them to also put that out onto Xbox, especially if Ubisoft Plus is coming over to the platform as well. It'll get people to try out their games, then potentially go ahead and sign up for Ubisoft Plus to get access to the newer games. And when it comes to showcases, we also got this information here about another show the day before the Xbox and Bethesda event. That is going to be the Future Game Show. It will be on June 11th at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this will be showing world premieres, exclusive trailers, developer presentations, and they say here an odd surprise or two. We've seen this show over the last couple of years. From what I understand, from what I remember from the Future Game Show, it was interesting. It was fun. I don't think there was ever anything huge announced at this show. I could be wrong, but hey, maybe this year will be different, especially without E3. Maybe they've given the checkbook out to try to get as many big announcements as possible to bring people over to watch their show. I'll definitely be watching it. Potentially will be streaming it. So stay tuned for that, because that weekend is going to be a lot of fun, especially if there are just a bunch of multiple shows throughout the weekend, all ending with the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. That's it for me, guys. When do you think the Activision Blizzard deal is going to close? This year or early next year? Are you impressed with Xbox outselling the PlayStation 5 last week in Japan? Are you going to be watching the future game show? And are you excited for those Ubisoft games coming over to Xbox Game Pass? If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Bye.